Hey, Mr. Russell.
Yes.
Hey, you opened up a really interesting thought there, the connection between the Erev Rav and the Malakim and all those mighty nations. That's not something I know a lot about, but it's just a really interesting connection. I didn't know if y'all had any deeper study material or options for that.
I was looking for it here. What verse was that talking about where it was talking about the giants?
Um,
I think it's the end of chapter 13.
Is it,
Yeah,
and the children learned.
let's see what Rabbi Monk has to say about it.
Yeah, it's like 32, 33.
yeah. B'nai Anak.
Mm,
Um,
33. They saw the feeling.
did you say it was 33?
Yes.
B'nai Anak, I'm sorry, sons.
So it says, there we saw the Nephilim. It says, see the commentary on Genesis 6:4 from this book, or this set. It says the Nephilim were fallen angels who subsequently united with the daughters of Adam and produced giants called Anakim, and later were physically weaker, but were still more powerful than the Raphaim, who were at the lowest level, uh, as is noted in Joshua 14:12 and 11:21. Caleb ultimately put an end to that generation of giants who were dwelling in Hebron. Rabbi Hirsch teaches that the fact that the Nephilim had remained in Canaan since the time of Adam is proof that the land of Canaan was spared from the flood. That's interesting. Uh, we were like grasshoppers in their eyes. And so we were in their eyes. Rashi cites the Talmud, which explains how the spies knew what the giants thought of them.
Mm.
The giants were sitting under some cedars from a mourner's meal, for a mourner's meal. And when the spies saw them, they quickly climbed into the trees to hide from their perch. They were able to overhear the giants say to one another, they are grasshoppers in the trees. Sota 35b. So on this,
So the spies climbed into the tree? Or
no,
who climbed into the tree?
the Israelites climbed into the trees, and so they look like grasshoppers in the trees,
Oh,
um, to the giants. So what's going on with this procession of giants is as they bred themselves down.
mm-hmm.
The Nephilim, the Anakim, and the Raphaim, um, each one of them gets weaker as they, I guess, dilute their gene pool or however it works, and they get weaker and weaker uh, as they advance. Um, which I guess the idea is the Erev Rav gets weaker and weaker. Different levels of the Erev Rav are weaker levels as the mixed multitudes. And I'm kind of speculating on this because I don't necessarily have a source in it, but it makes sense that as the Erev Rav comes in and um, interbreeds with the Jewish people, the Erev Ra becomes weaker and weaker, and they become holier and holier because of the Jewish soul that they're breeding into themselves. this has to be the correlation between these two, the giants and the Erev Rav, as we see. I wrote that thing on because I was writing that thing out about the people, so people would kind of understand reading about the people and about the Erev Rav, and that's where it kind of goes through there. Uh, this I don't know if I told you about this particular book here, James. I don't know if I've showed you this book or you're aware of it. Um,
No,
it
I haven't seen that before.
this is probably one of the best books that I found on the Erev Rav, and it's a nice little book um,
Yeah.
called "Unlocking the Secret of the Erev Rav" by B.R. Levy, and there's a good bookmark.
Yeah.
I believe it right there. There's a reason I had it there.
Yeah, I guess just kind of my interest around it is somewhat new. I don't know that much, but it just seems interesting that, that in popular culture, everyone's so worried about trying to calculate how tall these giants are. But I mean, there's real world effects going on here, and particularly for in the Gare world. I mean, this is kind of our arch enemy, so to say, is the Erev Rav. It seems like, or our job to, try to purify that impure force. And it's interesting that here in Parshas Shelach, this is kind of like the ground zero for that influence, because Israel had an opportunity to um, deal head on, I guess you could say, with the Arab Rav. And there's some kind of connection there between the Arab Rav souls within Israel and then the actual Arab Rav of the giants are in the land. But it's
Yeah,
interesting that it correlates to today, in the things that we're dealing with in this moment.
yeah, and there's this idea that that we are the Erev Rav. We are a part of the mixed multitudes because we're integrating in with the Jewish people and with Torah, by being Nelva Ger, by attaching to Israel the same way as the Erev Rav came out of Egypt and attaching to Israel.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't have a source for this, but I've almost thought if that was related to something kind of like Esav Sheba Yaakov, kind of like we're like the connected to the soul of Yaakov, but we're kind of like the Esav side of it. I don't know if that's sounds
Yeah.
right or not, but
But those, like you're saying, going along with your line of thinking, those that succeed, you know, become associated with the head of Asaph, the sparks that are within the head of Asaph, uh,
mm.
and so um, that is, that's how we go. Because you talk about being current, the when we look at Israel in 1948 and how they entered back into the land like they're entering in now, and they came into the land and they fought the Arabs, and they got all this stuff, and they got themselves established back into the land. What happened after that is that all of the mixed multitude, basically, all of the Erev Rav out of Russia were let to come into Israel. And these were people who, I think it was the way it was worded, was that people who, if they would have been put into a Nazi concentration camp because their grandfather was Jewish, even though they weren't Jewish, but they had a Jewish grandfather, or they had something like that, they were still associated with the mixed multitudes because, they had, like I said, a Jewish grandfather or something like that. They were expelled from Russia, but Israel accepted them because they would have been killed in a concentration camp. That's kind of the way I understand it. But to me, it is a reoccurrence of this Erev Rav reattaching to what? The modern day Israel. And so all of these secular, communist, Jewish type of people came into Israel and basically were able to influence the government
Mhm.
into a secular government within Israel. And of course, the world liked all that and supported it and helped them along. Um, and so we are dealing with that. You know, we are dealing with it, but Israel is dealing with that problem uh, with these secular Jews running the country. Yeah, my theory is that it's going to be I think it's going to be even a shorter lived problem now that Israel is becoming more religious and taking more force into protecting itself and not listening to the nations of the world. But also, what we're seeing is this whole idea of the Erev Rav getting weaker because they're breeding back into the Jewish people, and and Israel is becoming more religious. One of the reason is because secular socialist Jewish people don't have babies, don't have very many babies. But the religious, the Torah observant in Israel, they're having 5, 7, 10 babies. And so it's the rule of math comes into play, uh, is that all of these Russian um, uh, mixed multitude Jewish that were allowed to come into Israel are dying off, breeding out, becoming more religious. And we see what we see today because of that. They are, Israel is trusting Hashem and standing up and fighting against their attackers instead of looking for a compromise and doing all the things that they've done in the past that just drug this whole thing out.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There's certainly a lot of negative elements within the topic of Erev, but it seems as though there's kind of a positive element there too, because they are a mixed multitude, mixed with good and evil. And it really was Moshe's influence, I think, if I understand the concept, that kind of tried to amalgamate these people into the soul of Israel, and it was not altogether successful. But it's also, I don't know, like, the enemies of Israel, enemies of Torah will like to point out the track record of the failings of the Jewish people, and certainly the sin of the Meraglim was a big one. But in a way, it seems like there's a positive element there that kind of keeps the door open for people to connect themselves with the holiness that's available within Torah and within, the good things that Israel has to offer the world.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I think you're absolutely right. I think there is a positive dynamic when those holiness sparks are come out and the Erev Rav connects back into the Torah and into the righteousness of Israel and becomes Gerim and as in attaching themselves to Israel and doing Torah and becoming righteous. So
Yeah, sure.
there's a big
Absolutely.
positive dynamic with that. But I think uh, one of the problems is, in this modern day world is people don't understand about the Erev Rav. They don't see it functioning and operating as we've just talked about within the world to
Mhm.
know how to approach it and deal with it, and that these sparks need to be elevated, and that's representative in the Gerim of the nations that attach themselves to Israel as Nelva Hager. It's to me, it's almost elementary, but
Yeah.
it's so foreign uh, to the minds of people because they have no idea who these Erev Ravs are, how they're associated, connected with the giants, what's going on, what's being said. And, even though we still kind of fumble through the topic, because we're looking at it, from this perspective of the righteous from among the nations, and we're still trying to learn how to articulate it and source it.
Hmm.
Um, but we're doing a much better job. And I'm telling you what, a lot of people understand about the Erev Rav today than they understood 10 years ago. I guarantee you.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I don't mean to bring up a painful name, but I know that Rabbi Chaim Richman has talked about how the Noahide movement, um, obviously, I think we would take it probably farther than he has, but he does talk about how spiritually it directly combats, the ideology of Erev Rav, and even going down to, Amalek, the throughout the generations, the enemy of Israel. I mean, if I'm understanding this story right, the mother of Amalek approached the family of Abraham and wanted to convert. And when she was turned away, went to Esav and fathered Amalek. So, I mean, I don't understand this well. Obviously, there's a lot of practical things that I still need to learn for sure. But it seems like a lot of these concepts and these principles are very redemptive and are worthy of study.
Oh, absolutely. I remember, talking with Sam Peake, which was Chaim Richmond's top student, about, I just now ran across this terminology, Erev Rav, and I go in to talk to him about it, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's all this and that. We know, it's like, why aren't you telling somebody about that? Why weren't you, it just was amazing. It's like, oh yeah, that we know all that, and that's all well known, and you know, it's different when it formulates within the minds of the Ger, the righteous from among the nations, because we look at it in a totally different way, like exactly like we're looking at it today, James. That we start looking at it in that perspective, where the Jewish people don't view some of these topics in that same way. They don't view it from our perspective. They view it from the Jewish perspective, and they categorize it, and they work with it according to their understanding of it, and or how it affects them. It obviously affects us much different. So we look at it in a much different way because we are that in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
And because
I think Erev Rav is probably a very painful topic within the soul of Israel. And people like us that are bringing it up and not letting them forget about it. It's almost like, I don't know if this analogy is right, but just like this pearl of great price, we're agitating them to really make them deal with it in a way.
we are, because it's because it's horrible.
They suppressed it.
And they did suppress it because what they don't want to do is they don't want, the Jew down the street that did something. Oh, that's Erev Rav. And it opens up a door for the anti-Semites to persecute
Yeah,
Jews. Oh,
exactly.
these are that's a Erev Rav over here, or these guys in New York bankers are Erev Rav, or whatever's Erev Rav.
Abram's Pavano's teaching on that is amazing
He
because it's
did.
not a person.
He did.
Yeah.
Uh,
I've listened to that so many times. I keep reviewing it. There's so much more to learn in that. It's so great.
um, what did Alon
Havana.
Ivana
Mm-hmm.
has done a good teaching on the Erev Rav as well.
Yeah, Ephraim Paulvana from Canada. Are we talking about the
No,
same
no,
guy?
he did one too, and his is very, very good.
Okay.
But Alon Ivana,
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
AB.
Lena Nava. Okay, gotcha.
he did a very good one, but he didn't have it. He has it segments of it out, but I think you have to be a part of his deal to go in and get the whole teaching. Uh,
Okay.
but it's very good. It's a very good source on it. This book is a very good source on it as well.
Who
Uh,
wrote that book, by the way?
yeah, this
Who's the author?
the author is R.B. Levy,
Okay.
Unlocking the Secret of the Erev Rav.
Okay, thank you.
Good, precise. And, it's not a big book, but it's tons of information, tons of sources. Um, and those teachings. But if you notice, there's all type of rabbis teaching about the Erev Rav now. And why is that? Because we generated the topic uh, through the B'nai Noach, and I think that's one of the things that influences in how we influence the dialogue. We done the same thing with Shituf. No one ever talked about Shituf till and I found it. Like I said, I found it in a book you wouldn't sourced in a book that you wouldn't think you would ever find anything in it. It was a book on the uh, what is it?
Oh,
Uh-oh. Birth control in Jewish law, and it was actually an excellent book, uh, a scholarly book by David M. Feldman that talks about so much stuff as he's going into this, and he sources everything, so well. And that was one of the footnotes that I ran across in here, which just started getting me to talk about Shitu and how it was, basically allowed for the Gentile, a very base Gentile, like a B'nai Noach, that it's not even keeping the 7 laws, and he's allowed it uh, because he needs an intermediary. He doesn't know any better, but it's not allowed for those who accept the 7 laws. That's the distinguishing mark that people, that's got to be brought out. So unless uh, uh, the righteous Gentile is looking at this topic, it doesn't come out in Jewish discussions. Why? It's not their issue, but it's our issue.
mm-hmm.
How can we be allowed, how can the Gentile be, certain Gentiles be allowed Shituf, certain, then other Gentiles are not? How do we function and operate within this idea? How do we understand our Christian families who are allowed Shitu, but they're not allowed to worship that intermediary as God? We have to be able to articulate and understand that even though they're allowed Shitu, they're not allowed to worship it as God, which is what happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they were allowed, so it's interesting, but the idea, and it's one of the things we do as we go through these scriptures, we discuss this in within that context of the righteous Gentile learning and understanding and functioning these topics within our mindset. The same thing James is doing with Hasidus and the Tanya is bringing that same concept when we go into some of these rabbinical literature, and we look at it different, and we draw out things that the Jews either don't talk about or haven't really thought about. Because you got to realize they haven't thought about us for 2,000 years. We haven't been, as far as the righteous Gentile. Well, I'm sure they've thought a lot about us as a wicked Gentiles.
Mm-hmm.
But as a righteous Gentile, they hadn't paid any mind to us. They haven't studied these topics. And, one of the problems we did is we come out of the chute like a racehorse, and just freaked them all out and freaked all the rabbis out because they didn't know how to disseminate all of this information and all these questions and all what's going on. And so, unfortunately, their answer was just to squelch everything back down till they get a grip on it. And so that doesn't take away from us and our responsibility of looking into these scriptures, looking into sources, and trying to understand and articulate uh, terminologies and identities, um, and how it affects us. This is very, very important. It's very important to helping the Jewish world and the rabbinical world uh, deal with the redemption that's coming. You know, we're waking them up and saying that, hey, look, we're here. We have to ask these questions. We have to get these answers. And you sitting us over in the corner and giving us seven laws, and don't look at anything, don't read anything, don't ask anything, don't do anything, is not going to work. That is not helping the Jewish people, and that's not helping redemption. All right.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating.
So where are we at? Are we got any other questions left in the Messalea? If not, what's the next one, Teresa? 14:7 through
14:8 through 25.
okay. James C., would you like to read that one for us?
Yeah, okay.
So 14:7 through
14:8.
14:8 through 25.
Okay. If Hashem desires us, he will bring us to this land and give it to us, a land that flows with milk and honey. But do not rebel against Hashem, and you will not fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them. Hashem is with us. Do not fear them. But the entire assembly said to pelt them with stones, and the glory of Hashem appeared in the tent of meeting to all the children of Israel. Hashem said to Moshe, "To what point will this people anger me? And how long will they not have faith in me, despite all the signs that I have performed in its midst? I will smite them with the plague and annihilate them. And I shall make you a greater and more powerful nation than they." Moshe said to Hashem, "Then Egypt will hear, he from whose midst you brought up this nation with your power, and they will say about the inhabitants of this land, having heard that you, Hashem, are in the midst of this people, that you, Hashem, appeared eye to eye, and your cloud stands over them, and that in a pillar of cloud you go before them by day, and in a pillar of fire at night. And if you were to put this people to death like a single man, then the nations that heard of your fame would say, because Hashem lacked the ability to bring his people to the land that he had sworn to give them, he slaughtered them in the wilderness. And now, may now the strength of the Lord be magnified as you have spoken, saying, Hashem, slow to anger, abundant in kindness, forgiver of iniquity and willful sin, and who absolves but does not absolve, recalling the iniquity of parents upon children to the third and fourth generations. Forgive now the iniquity of this people according to the greatness of your kindness, and as you have forgiven this people from Egypt until now. And Hashem said, I have forgiven in accordance with your words. But as I live, and the glory of Hashem shall fill the entire world, that all the men who have seen my glory and my signs that I performed in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tested me these 10 times, and have not heeded my voice, if they will see the land that I have sworn to give their forefathers, and all who anger me shall not see it. But my servant Kalev, because a different spirit was with him, and he followed after me wholeheartedly, I shall bring him to the land to which he came, and his offspring will drive out its inhabitants, the Amalekite, the Canaanite, dwell in the valley. Tomorrow turn yourselves and journey toward the wilderness in the direction of the Sea of Reeds.
Okay.
Hey, that's super interesting. I don't know if I've noticed that before, but is that a recall to the what was said after the golden calf, that connection you made earlier when he talks about Hashem slow to anger? Isn't that the 13 attributes?
Mhm.
Yes, that's in the 13 attributes. Yes.
Yeah, that's all about how Hashem gives sustenance even to idolaters, which is very pertinent to the sin of the golden calf.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, and then here in like verse 9, a very interesting statement, for they are our bread, which Hashem will deliver them, talking about the inhabitants of the land of Canaan, into our hands through natural means. Fear will grip them, and we them as we approach, and we will be able to consume them like bread. And that's the Ramban.
That's referring to the being able to grab the holy sparks from
Yeah, well,
them.
that's like eating bread and elevating. The elevation of the sparks is by eating it, by eating bread, and that's how you elevate the sparks within the bread, the life force that was within the wheat, and so it's all connecting, all to that. But they could have, like I said, uh, it wouldn't have been like uh, what he's saying is not like so much as the natural hand of Hashem coming down and smiting them. He would have just caused them to have fear, to run away. And there's many stories within Jewish battles, even in contemporary history, to where the Arabs run away thinking that there was thousands of soldiers there. And, when they asked, why did you run, after they were captured, and they were asked, why did you run? They go, oh, well, there was thousands and thousands of soldiers, and there was like 12.
Well, there's Abraham and the 813 when he was fighting.
318.
I mean 300. What did I say? 318. Sorry, when they were fighting the 4 and 5 kings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 318 men um, uh, fought 5 kings and defeated them. Same aspect going on here for victory. The same thing. We've seen all of this, in all the different wars, how outnumbered. And I think I read